The girl with the eyes that spoke in Miracle on 34th Street. The woman who silenced America when she sang Tonight in West Side Story. Natalie Wood was once the gentle light of Hollywood, innocent, charming, yet captivating. But one night in November 1981, that light was extinguished. She was found dead off the coast of Catalina Island, alone in the cold sea, with no one to witness her final moments. All that remained was her boat, the splendor, her unexplained bruises, and her never-ending testimony. The mansion where she lived is now covered in dust, her lipstick still on the dressing table, her family photos faded. Her possessions are still there, but her memories and the truth are buried deep under the Catalina night water. Have you ever heard of Natalie Wood? Maybe you have seen her on screen. But what about the real woman behind the lights? There is a part of the truth that has been left behind. And now it's time to pick up the pieces. If you lived in America from the 50s to the 70s, the name Natalie Wood was almost indispensable on the screen. Not only was she a talented child actress, she was the face that audiences grew up with. From black and white films to colorful musicals, Natalie was present in every phase of Hollywood's transformation. She did not need flashy roles or long lines. Just a look, a moment of silence was enough to make people feel the pain, the desire, or the innocence that the character carried within. That is why middle-aged audiences still remember her, not because she was famous, but because she touched their emotions in a very quiet but profound way. Natalie is not an entertainment star. She is the image of a time when cinema still moved people, a time when women spoke with their inner feelings on screen. Natalie was born into a Russian-Ukrainian immigrant family, in the midst of the United States recovering from the Great Depression. From a young age, she did not live a normal childhood. Her mother, an ambitious woman, soon recognized her daughter's special eyes and took her to the film set when she was only 5 years old. Natalie's childhood had no playground, no school friends. There were only camera lenses, studio lights, and memorized lines every day. She grew up playing someone else, sometimes not knowing which was her real self. And then, in the middle of that light, a man appeared, Robert Wagner. They met when Natalie was just a 17-year-old girl, and he was a rising star. Their first marriage in 1957 made the whole of America watch, like a Hollywood fairy tale. But behind that perfection was a difference, an unnamed distance. They separated after 4 years. After a brief marriage to producer Richard Gregson and the birth of a daughter, Natalie unexpectedly returned to Robert. They remarried on July 16 on the Ramblin' Rose, anchored off Paradise Cove in Malibu. Their daughter, Courtney, was born on March 9, 1974. But even long-term love is not without its ups and downs. There are things Natalie never said, and no one asked. The woman once loved by the whole country ended up spending her most private years with the man who had once made her leave everything, and then return. Which of Natalie's roles is the most unforgettable for you? Natalie never had to shout to get attention. It was her quietness and thoughtful eyes that made it impossible for the audience to take their eyes off her. In Rebel Without a Cause, she was not only James Dean's co-star, but also the one who brought to the character a heart growing in loneliness. In Splendor in the Grass, Natalie silenced Hollywood as she witnessed a young girl struggling between her desire for love and the repression of society. And in West Side Story, even though she didn't sing with her own voice, she still made the audience believe that Maria was real, that her love was alive in every frame. Natalie didn't choose roles for fame, she chose characters with sadness, with a desire to be understood. There was something about the women she played that always carried a secret wound that made the audience feel strangely close. It is no coincidence that Natalie is considered the representative image of the fragile beauty of American women in the mid-20th century. No noise, no scandal. Just a girl stepping out of the screen, but leaving a very real echo in the hearts of viewers. After years of glamour and turmoil, Natalie Wood found stability when she remarried Robert Wagner. They lived in a mansion overlooking the ocean, raised a daughter, and from the outside, everything seemed peaceful. But for Natalie, peace was never a certainty. Since childhood, she had carried a haunting fear of water. Not ordinary fear, but a fear ingrained in her by a prophecy her mother had told her, that Natalie would die in cold water and darkness. In late November 1981, Natalie, her husband, actor Christopher Walken, and Captain Dennis Davern were on the yacht Splendor for a holiday near Catalina Island. What really happened that night, no one knows for sure. What is known is that, the next morning, Natalie's body was found floating in the water, nearly a mile from the yacht. She was wearing a flannel nightgown, a thick coat, and socks, but no shoes. The rubber dinghy attached to the boat was also gone. The initial autopsy report suggested that she fell into the water while trying to move the boat. But the fresh bruises on her arms, legs, and face told a different story. The captain later admitted to hearing Natalie and Robert arguing. He believed the incident was more than an accident. Natalie had shouted, "Someone help me, I'm drowning," according to witnesses from a nearby boat. In 2011, Los Angeles police reopened the investigation. The cause of death was changed to drowning and other undetermined factors. Robert Wagner was considered the last person to be with her, and was listed as a person of interest. No criminal charges were filed, however. More than 4 decades later, the truth remains as silent as the waves of Catalina's night. And Natalie, a woman who had always feared water, ended up leaving this world in the middle of the cold ocean, in absolute solitude. Not on screen, but in the very reality she had tried to escape. What do you think about Natalie's passing? Leave your number 1 comment below the video. After her mysterious death off the coast of Catalina, Natalie Wood was buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park, where many Hollywood legends are also resting. On her grave, a simple marble slab with her name engraved on it, quietly stands among the shade of trees and familiar paths. Fans often bring flowers, as if to keep some of the memories that they do not want to fade. But outside that small plot of land, her world seems to have closed too soon and too quietly. The house that Natalie Wood once called home, after her death, also seems to have quietly closed like an unfinished dream. Located in Beverly Hills, the villa that was once filled with light and laughter, has now become a dusty and silent space. The makeup items are still on the table. Silk robes hang loosely in the bedroom. A family photo taken the previous summer is still in its wooden frame, the colors fading over the years. Natalie's estate was valued at $2.5 million at the time of her death, a modest sum given her status in American culture, but still a considerable fortune. The will named Robert Wagner as co-executor, along with her mother. A portion of the estate was left to her 2 daughters, Natasha and Courtney, who later entered the arts as a way to keep their mother alive. However, the most precious thing she left behind was not in the safe or the land title. It was the invisible traces of a golden age, still present in every corner of the house. A house now closed, silently looking out over the valley, as if waiting for a familiar footstep that would never return. When Natalie Wood passed away, Hollywood lost a familiar face, and audiences lost a part of their youth. But her legacy was never just in her films or her net worth. It was in the way she made viewers feel the fragility in each role, in the way she brought to life women full of feelings, imperfect, but real. Natalie was not noisy, not ostentatious. She quietly entered the hearts of viewers like an old friend, and stayed there forever. Those who saw her in West Side Story or Splendor in the Grass probably still remember that look, the look that carried many things that were never said. Her daughter, Natasha Gregson Wagner, later made a documentary called Natalie Wood, What Remains Behind, as a final whisper to restore the truth, and keep her mother alive in the memories of those who loved her. Natalie once said, "I always see the most beautiful thing in fragility." Perhaps it was that fragility, until the very end, that made her immortal. If you ever watched West Side Story with your parents, or caught Natalie Wood's eyes on the small screen one evening, tell us about that moment. A role, a feeling, or something that left you speechless and never forgotten. Because sometimes, memories are not in the story told, but in the things we remember together. And if you want to continue these meetings, subscribe to the channel. So that each time we come back, we can keep the memories together a little longer.